Laughter, like a gentle stream, filled Carter's consciousness until it turned to fearful screams. He saw his son run towards a Federal soldier who just discharged his gun. "Jacob!" Carter muttered as his eyes snapped open. His mind felt worn instead of rested, as if he had been tortured for hours. He quickly examined the figures in front of him who pointed their barrels at him. 2 soldiers in ragged grey uniforms glared down at the man in blue. Damn it. "Get up!" one of the Confederates demanded with hostility. Slowly Carter got up, his eyes fixed on his captors while his mind was thinking of a solution. If he didn't get away before being walked into their camp, then he would be shot at dawn as was custom. The former captain remained calm when one of the 2 men took his position behind the prisoner. The other was about to lead the way ahead. Carter followed with fake obedience for a few beats of his slow heart. Then he suddenly darted to the side, switching places with the man in front of him. At the same time, the rebel behind fired his gun, but missed. The bullet hit his comrade in the back. Carter pushed the wounded man onto his comrade and took back his revolver. Using the moment of disorientation, he fired 2 times. One man was hit in the heart, the other in the head. Before leaving, Carter went through their pockets, taking money, ammunition, and whatever he could use. "Much obliged, gentlemen," he muttered with a smile when he rode past the corpses. He did always have a rather dark sense of humor. In that moment, however, he realized how morbid it had grown due to recent events. Carter didn't mind. Bitter cynicism would suit him when he looked into their killer's eyes. Over the coming days he kept moving, mostly at night. He avoided Federal territory and rode to the east. The occasional lone soldier was killed and robbed as Carter found his way to the Appalachian Mountains. There he settled, always moving but never leaving the safety of the mountains. Hunting, fishing, and with a bit of luck stealing was what supported him as days turned to weeks. Carter was just roasting his meal over a fire when he heard footfalls. Not the light sound of an animal, it was the sound of a man. A tired man who didn't pay attention to any listeners. Without a sound he got up. His blue uniform he had discarded weeks ago already. He had burned jacket and trousers and switched them with plainer clothes, which wouldn't draw attention as soon as the opportunity had presented itself. The man that came into sight was much older than Carter. He stopped to catch his breath and scanned the seemingly abandoned camp. When he sat on a rock to rest, Carter sneaked up behind him. The older man froze immediately when he heard a gun being cocked right behind him. "What a way to greet a stranger," the traveler muttered with sincere calmness. Slightly abashed but not convinced of the stranger's harmlessness, the former soldier moved to face the man. The gun he held firmly aimed at the older man. "I can assure you I did not intend to meet you. I didn't intend to meet anyone here. Any man would be with his family by now." Carter realized that he probably looked like a guerrilla fighter to the stranger. Not eager to reveal the truth, he only asked, "Is the war over?" "As over as it can be, although life is tough now that them Yankees are patrolling every street." After a moment of silence, where the stranger stared into Carter's little fire, he added with amusement, "Your meal is about to get roasted." Carter put away his gun and moved slowly to the fire. Every second glance he cast at the stranger, not sure if he should let down his guard that much. "I ought to be on my way," the old man sighed. "Stay," Carter objected. He felt a certain amount of obligation to repay the kind gesture of sharing the news. "Lunch is ready," he grumbled when he started to share the rabbit he'd caught. Runner whined with unease when the man led him over the steep pathways which led out of the mountains. The stallion had hated going up, and he just as equally hated going down, but once they were in the grasslands, Carter was sure his friend would be happier. Whenever a Yankee patrol rode along the way, Carter made sure to avoid eye contact. It had grown noticeably warmer, and his sloppy hat gave him protection from both the curious eyes and the sun. After weeks of solitude, the next town felt overcrowded, and after months of campaigning, civilian life felt foreign, even dangerous to Carter. He tried to maintain an air of ease around him despite the uncomfortable sensation. He needed ammunition and tools to clean his pistol. Perhaps he should buy a rifle once he was at it. And even if the harvest was bad, at least Runner needed grain. The next store he found was meager in its resources, which explained the haggard looks of the people around. War had bereft them of the time to tend to their crops. Burning down houses had taken from them whatever they had stored. Carter sighed inaudibly. He had been part of it. He kept the list of groceries sparse when it came to himself. He could hunt if necessary. The gunsmith, on the other hand, was thriving with his business. Carter didn't take long. He knew what he wanted. With a clean coat and a new Springfield, he exited to get back to Runner. It was on that way back when he felt the stairs on his back. The kind of stairs one didn't want on his back. The rifle still in his hand, he turned around. 4 men had their eyes fixed on him. One of them held up a wanted poster with a slight grin. It showed Carter's face, name, and the order to bring him, dead or alive. The man felt his stomach sink. The Union hadn't forgotten him. They had shifted the angle. Everyone, bounty hunter, military, even other outlaws, would come after him. Carter reacted quickly, raising the barrel. Instinct pulled the trigger, which sent one of the men to the ground. The others took cover with his teammate from his horse. 2 shots followed, but both missed, and by the time the bounty hunters ran for their own horses, Carter was already on his way out of town. Feeling a bullet graze his cheek, only a few moments later he looked behind. The 3 bounty hunters were following, and they were closing in. Runner snorted. He was a swift horse, but the newly bought load slowed him down. Carter took his Colt and shot at the man behind. Only one got hit in the leg and stopped. Another bullet whistled past him, wounding him on the shoulder. Another bullet wounded Runner on the upper leg. The stallion reared up and whined. Carter had to cling to the mane and back with all his strength as he tried to calm his friend. The next time he looked at his persecutors, they were only a few feet away. He had to think of another plan than running, and he had to do so quickly. Spotting rail tracks, he steered his horse towards them. It was a rocky landscape. It couldn't be far. Runner tried to refuse. "Come on! Come on!" he barked, forcing Runner to follow the tracks. His friend snorted but obeyed. With his ears flattened, he ran on, with behind them more shots sounded. Carter himself shot his last 2 bullets. New ammunition was in the saddlebag. He hadn't had time to properly stow it. As loyal as the Mustang was, when Carter wanted to run into the gaping tunnel, that loyalty ended. Runner refused to follow the tracks into the dark. He knew trains came out of there. Not wasting time arguing, he dismounted. "Very well then, you go around." Runner only looked at him. Carter gave him a slap on the rump that sent the animal away. "Go! Go!" Behind, the bounty hunters were already close enough to shoot him dead. Jumping away at the right moment saved his legs from being shot, bereaving him of the ability to escape. Halfway stumbling and falling, halfway running, he took off into the dark. The riders followed at first, but the sound of hoofs quickly faded, leaving Carter alone with his echoing footfalls. Not slowing down, he looked over his shoulder, assuring himself that no one pursued. They probably waited outside for him to come back. Carter stopped. There was nothing but darkness ahead. He took a moment to breathe before walking on more slowly. The ghostly sound of a hooting owl let his mind snap to attention. When it sounded again, Carter could locate its origin from ahead. How? Before he could finish the thought, a large black owl flew towards him, missing his head by mere inches, just like back at the camp. Only this time the bird seemed to be made of smoke instead of firm matter. Carter ducked, shielding his face from any attack. A rumble beneath his feet made him look up again. A bright light blinded him. How could he hear the owl, but not the coming train? Turning on his heels, he started running towards the exit. Still blinded, his foot was caught between two of the wooden planks. He bit his tongue when he landed hard on the tracks. He almost thought it would shatter his teeth. Behind him, the train closed in. The locomotive sounded the typical whistle several times. Still seeing stars, Carter stumbled on, moving to the side in hope of finding any sort of niche. He had to feel with his hands, groping around like a blind man. Again the whistle blew. It almost let his head explode. Not risking another run, the man squeezed himself to the rocky wall, standing on his toes. He hoped to not be caught in the suction of the passing train. When it shot past him, he could almost feel the metal wheels on his heels. The train was only inches from his back. He held his breath just to be sure. His hands tried to find hold on the rock as the wind suction tore at his clothes. His head got carried away. When the train was gone, the man only let himself fall to the ground. His legs trembled from the tenseness and the fear. On the bright side, those bounty hunters might now think he was dead, run over and turned to mush by a large steel monster. Carter spit a mouthful of blood on the rock next to him. He let himself fall on his back across the tracks and stared up at the rock. That was some mad stupidity right there, Steve. He looked towards the ceiling, still catching his breath. After a moment of lying there, the adrenaline wore off and his thoughts reverted back to where he was and what he was doing. And why. Getting to his feet, he stumbled towards the entrance. He took cover to peek outside, but there was no ambush waiting for him. Only his head, which lay on the ground, carried away by the train's velocity. The moon was just starting to rise, casting the surroundings into a dusky grey light. Carter whistled for Runner to come, yet nothing stirred. Following the direction he had sent his friend into, the man started walking. His whistle faded into the distance from time to time. Nice horsey, just let me look into those nice pockets of yours. The unsettlingly soothing words were followed by a low whine. Assuming it to be Runner, Carter followed the voice which kept talking. Sneaking through bushes and undergrowth, he saw how the horse stepped back from the reaching hands with another upset sound. Don't be afraid of me. The robber stopped dead when Carter drew back the hammer of his coat and stepped towards him. Hey! Get your damn hands off my horse! The stranger slowly backed away. When their eyes met, he tipped his head and smiled mischievously. But of course, dear sir! Carter followed the man's every movement with his gun. He wanted to make it clear that he would kill. He just hoped he would come up with an idea if the stranger decided to test if the Colt was loaded. The former soldier moved towards Runner step by step. Just when he wanted to tell the stranger to clear off, the other man drew a gun himself. Desperation could lead to funny ideas. His enemy was stunned momentarily when the empty Colt hit him on the head, giving Carter time to close the distance between himself and the robber. Tackling him to the ground, they wrestled for a moment until Carter managed to use the other man's gun. The body fell still when the pistol discharged. He needed a moment to gather his thoughts before he went to pick up his own. His eyes met the broken gaze of the corpse again when he was about to return to Runner. After consideration, he decided to look into the stranger's pockets. He found $2 in a folded paper. Runner snorted in the darkness. You going to judge me? You wasn't fond of him either. His friend responded with a whine and came closer. Carter stuffed the paper into his own pocket. It was too dark anyway. Feeling his way, he found the ammo to reload his Colt and slung the rifle over his shoulder, just in case this time. As he wanted to mount, however, the stallion stepped away. What? Runner shook his mane and whined again. Carter approached again and was denied to mount once again. Don't tell me you are still hurt cause of that damn tunnel. What was I gonna do? Let him shoot me? Still upset, Runner snorted and walked away. Hey! Carter followed, taking him by the bridle. Runner tried to draw back, but the man put his hand on his friend's nose. "You was right, okay? It was a stupid idea." He spoke gently while stroking the horse. "But that's our life now, playing poker with the devil." Carter couldn't see, but he felt his friend's eyes on him, and he knew he was begging him to take him home. But home was gone. Lisa was gone. Jacob was gone. "I'm sorry." His voice suddenly gave out. Refusing to cry, he clapped his friend's neck. "Come on, we need rest." But not with him. Carter tried to joke, casting one last look at the corpse. Not trying to mount again, he led his friend instead. Never before had he talked that much to a horse. It must have been the loneliness. Not the loneliness of being far away from friends and family, but the loneliness inside. The knowledge that there was no one in the world to care or wonder where he was, when he might come around. The crackling fire was the only sound. Neither wolf nor owl sounded in the distance. Carter took a look at the paper. It showed a picture of a man with dark but not cold eyes and a trimmed beard. It was him, although he was sure his appearance wasn't that accurate anymore. They had issued a dead or alive bounty order. He was worth $1,000. The small description included the little fact that he had been a captain in the Union Army. The time when he had been in the military felt like it had been another life. He had done it. He was now officially an outlaw. Carter laughed and cast the paper into the flames. His thoughts went back to his family and their murderer. How was he going to find information? How would he find Dabney? He didn't even know if that man was still in the army or if he had been a civilian before. Carter stared into the fire, letting his thoughts roam in hope that he might come up with some clever idea. He sighed. There was no way around. He had to ask his way through. Laying on his back, he drew the head into his face. He pictured his home in front of his mind's eye, the kettle on the fire, Jacob playing with yet another figure carved from wood. Where was Lisa? She was just doing the last dishes with her black hair tied into a bun. She would hum in her deep, warm voice, some tune he didn't know, but which sounded like dancing in the evening sun. Memories of how they'd met came to the surface. Hot nights and Mexican music, and a young woman who always found an excuse to be where a certain private was. He had always been shy. Lisa, on the other hand, always knew how to make a situation less awkward. When she had invited him to dance, he had been shy too. She had loved to dance, loved music, loved books.